Hi, my name is Eli McRae, and I'm here to present about BYOCTF. I believe that the best way to learn something is actually to go about teaching it to other people. And one of the great ways to do that with regards to cybersecurity is through capture the flag events. And I believe that everyone has the opportunity to learn how to become a CTF challenge developer. So a bit about myself. I am not an expert at anything. I've been in the hacking community here in Arkansas for the best 20 years or so, just doing various things, particularly Fort Smith 2600. We started that in 2006. And then also the Arkansas Hackers Discord, crime.life. I've got about 18 or so years of industry experience. That is anything from computer repair to software development, network engineering, over into education and academia, military experience. I say kind of on that because I'm a member of the Arkansas Air National Guard. I spent some time doing NCC and comm work there. But for the last 7 years, I've been doing cyber operations for the 223rd at Little Rock Air Force Base. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. The social at the top there. So a bit about my CTF story. There was an event in Little Rock, Arkansas called Jolt. That was a point in my life where I had been out of the military for a couple of years. I went to that event. I was fortunate enough to be on a team that did really well. I was on with some heavy hitters, and we did well. We won. And I was like, man, that was really cool. It ended up getting me back on track and into the military, being able to do all of this hacking stuff as a career. Well, in the process of doing that, I guess maybe my ego was like overinflated or something, but we said, man, that's a really cool thing. We could do that in Fort Smith. The reason we said in Fort Smith was because that is, where most of the top 3 teams were from. And so we said, we're going to do that. We put together a really cool event in Arkansas. So the history of that was really based on CTFD. So in 2018, we ran our first event, and that was based off of a fork of custom changes that we made to CTFD itself. We wrote some interesting additions there, and in 2019, all of those changes I sort of wrapped up into a plugin that CTFD has sort of implemented, a plugin system, and so I took that and made that a plugin. And I helped run CTFs around the state of Arkansas on behalf of the Department of Education. And a lot of that legacy sort of still continues on. I think there's something to the effect of like 535 high schools in Arkansas, and about 20% of them have experienced some sort of CTF because of the work of the Computer Science Initiative team and that I was a part of. So it was really cool to be able to help share that experience with high school students. But CTFD, I think, has some problems as well, particularly as changes would come out. It was hard to port the challenges from version to version. So also our plugins were hard to maintain because there was something that was changing on the backend database or something. It was hard to sort of keep that running and in line. All of that being said, please go use CTFD. Good framework, love it for a number of reasons. So with all of that, as we were developing challenges, there were some struggles. Part of that was like the level of expectation I had placed on myself, never having run a CTF before, but having played in some. I was like, man, I don't understand how I'm going to create all of these interesting challenges and have enough content to cover the entirety of the event. So one of the standards we set for ourselves was to be able to release at least one challenge, possibly 3, every hour for the entire duration of the CTF. And I think for that event, we were targeting 48 hours of CTF time. So that's a lot of challenges. And I think we ended up producing something like close to 100. The other thing is we didn't want to even announce the event until we had the human logistics side of it locked down, because this was supposed to be an in-person event, kind of a party, like I said. And once you have the venue and the food and like figuring out where people are going to go to the bathroom, that is the hardest part of like hosting an in-person event. What are they going to eat? What are they going to do with the food that they've eaten, right? So that what that led to ultimately is overproduction of challenges. We had way more challenges than we ended up actually deploying. Part of that was the like technical error for one reason or another, or we just simply overlooked it in the spreadsheet. That self-imposed vendor lock-in, we built those challenges with the capabilities of our framework in mind, so we couldn't take our challenges and take them to another event because just the way that the flag reveals would work out were just different in that other framework, whether that be Melavora, the Facebook framework, CTFD, something in between, homemade. And ultimately, all of that sort of led to a distraction from the core mission, which is to celebrate the hacker community here in Arkansas. So some of the challenges that we had also sort of as a team is that the team that was running the event kind of was shrinking. People moved on out of the area, weren't able to contribute remotely. Some had kids, myself included, and that just takes a lot of time away from us being able to come up with what we considered interesting and new challenges. And it's really hard to always have interesting and new challenges, and that was very important to us. We didn't just want to go and sort of regurgitate the same challenge over and over again for people. And so we would always say to ourselves, like, we're going to have the event when we have something to say, something interesting to showcase. So again, human logistics is hard. If you guys want to look at those links, when you get the slide deck, you'll be able to click those and actually see everything we did was very transparent as far as like where we spent the money. Every bit of money went back into the community, back into the event. Or other events potentially. So we said that we had a problem and we need a solution. We wanted something that would implement the ability for players to be able to contribute challenges without, sort of opening the kimono too much. People would always volunteer to help, but we don't need help stacking chairs. We need help with really cool ideas. We can move tables, we can figure out the bathroom situation, as I said, but we need interesting content to make people want to come. Next, we wanted some way for those contributions that people would make to be rewarded or given back to them in some meaningful way, something that would mean something more so than just a thumbs up or a kudos. And because of that, I guess this was like sort of a secondary feature. I wanted there to be some form of like interplayer transaction. So within the game, I can influence your play of the game to some degree. That all of those features would allow us, the organizers, to sort of pay more attention to the experience and the ambiance, the atmosphere, things like that. And so it would also potentially allow us to participate in the game again, because once you sort of joined the challenge developer team, it kind of took you out of the talent pool, and Arkansas is not particularly large. So there are cities that are larger than the entire state population of Arkansas, and so our talent pool was not as broad as others. So we want to be able to play the game too. And I'm sure there's some other problem that we were having that we thought this was a good idea. So I will say that at the time, no other framework offered this, but I put heavy asterisks there because I don't think I even bothered to Google it. So they might have existed. If one exists, please share. Be glad to see it. So none of that stuff existed until
I am the master.
Cut from a different cloth, I call your style windbreaker. Heaven, I'm blessed to be a heat maker. Ray-Bans take the light that I see, 100 degrees, and every day I keep it 100.
Cool. I hope that video played well. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Hopefully that'll go better live. Anyway, FS2600 solution, BYOCTF. Bring your own challenge or capture the flag, something like that. I think it's supposed to be a regular expression joke. I made it up and I kind of ran with it. So it's for us, by us. If you want to get a copy of these slides, you can go to byoctf.com/slides and look at that. The rest of the slide deck, that is. So I started this in 2020, and then I let it cook for a long minute. I don't think there was any contributions that I made. I kind of didn't forget about it, but there was just, COVID and all that stuff. So there was no like in-person event that was getting thought about for a long time. And then something changed in, late 2022, and we said, oh man, maybe we should do this thing. And I think I accidentally committed us to doing it in 2023. And so that led us up to, the event. So at the end of the day, the shortest and simplest analogy that I can offer is that it's kind of like a potluck for hackers, where the challenge developers, the hosting body, can create the main dish, if you will, and then everybody else can bring a side dish. They can bring, some other component, some other forensics expertise, or some other network traffic analysis expertise, or some, binary reversing expertise that your core team might lack. So again, the core features of the BYOCTF as is implemented by us is that players can earn points by other players solving the challenges that they contribute. That opens us up as the game masters or GMs to be able to play again. There was like this core trust issue that I think was the interesting problem that made me try to decide to implement a solution in the first place. Was like, how do I have people contribute challenges where they can trust that I am not going to cheat? And so we created this external validation scheme as well, which is still in place, but it's honestly not the main feature. You can contribute a challenge that is externally validated, where you never give us the flag. You can only answer yes or no whether that flag was correct, and based on your response, it does the thing and gives the points. We have our interplayer transactions and other things of that nature. You can sell stuff, hints, and information to each other. I think that's fun. With that, you have an economy. It's flag oriented, meaning that the flags are not bound to a specific challenge. So you can do Oprah style challenges where you can, under your chair, you have a flag, and you have a flag on the ceiling, and you don't have to know to go to a challenge X, Y, or Z and then put that flag in that you found. You can simply find a flag and capture it. Obviously, you can have partial flags or multiple flags, but a single flag can actually be part of multiple challenges, which I think was an interesting idea as well. We have the same thing as like the first blood points, the decaying points over time. I had a lot of other ideas as far as game mode, so PvP, so and a lottery effect. So the more people that solve a challenge, the less valuable it is at the end of the game. And then some other game modes as well. It used to be strictly Discord based. So if you go to the GitHub, you'll notice it says BYOCTF_Discord, or something like that, or Discord BYOCTF, I don't remember. But most people really wanted the the web experience. So it's not strictly Discord based, but that was sort of the initial implementation was made to run as a Discord bot. But that's not essential to the concept. It was really, I wanted the strong authentication that came with it. So other features, I mentioned the externally validated flag. You don't have to give us the flag material. They have a different mechanism slightly. Rather than typing sub, you type esub for external sub validation. But one caveat is that we will see the SHA-256 of the flag that's submitted. I mean, you've got to trust something somewhere. You can always challenge the GM, say, hey, what's the flag that produces that hash? And if we can't produce it, okay, there you go. Go to that link for the prototype server. You can implement that and look at the routes. It's all in Flask, so it's pretty straightforward and easy to ingest. I will say I have not implemented that in the web UI, but there you go. Challenge dependency or extension. I thought that was fun. What was really interesting is that a user contributed challenge can extend any other existing challenge. And so if you wanted to sort of pick up on something that was perhaps overlooked in a core, I use here memory analysis with volatility, a core challenge such as like, hey, what were the browser tabs open in Firefox? And that's the only flag that you wrote for that challenge. Player 2 can come along and say, hey, but what was saved in the clipboard memory? And that can be sort of a reuse and a recycling of that person's content. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the limitations of the features and why that would still be possible. So a way to think about that challenge dependency and unlocking is that our green challenges, A can unlock B and C. The player D can build a dependency upon either B or C, and then do other great things with those challenges. So the other way to look at that is A unlocks C or B, which unlocks D, which unlocks E. And all of those things can be player contributed challenges, just so long as the previous challenge in the chain exists within the database. You can create a dependency on it. That should be logical though, or obvious. So this is the data model for you database nerds. So yeah, it looks like spaghetti code because it is like, it looks complicated, and it kind of is. It's overly complicated. There are features on some of those tables that don't ever end up getting leveraged, but they're there for the sake of I don't know, future expansion, I guess. There's that. So how does it do the thing? I told you an interesting story about how a user would get, or a player would get extra points for contributing a challenge. Here's that narrated. So here is the author of a challenge. He's created challenge CC. There's 2 flags to this challenge. One of them is worth 150 points and flag 2 is worth 50 points. You submit that to the game and it says, okay, by default, that the fee that you have to pay in order to post a challenge is 50% of the sum of all your values of your flags. So real quick, that's all tunable. You can change that information, but there's that. So at this point, once you've committed that, you are down 100 points. So you pay that money, you are now invested in the viability of that challenge. As that happens, as you commit it, it becomes available to other players. They can have the opportunity to solve it or not. There's no guarantee that you will get a solve, but those players choose to pick it up. And it turns out that player 1 captures the first flag, and that's 150 points for them. Their number goes up, but as a reward for you having contributed a challenge that is solvable, you have been rewarded 25%, again, tunable, of that 150 points. So that turns out to be 37.5 points. So now your score goes up as well. You're still down, but you're getting closer to being, breaking even again. Next comes player 2. They solved flag 1 for 150 points. Their number goes up, your number goes up. Again, now you're at 375 points. You're only 25 points down at this point. Third player comes along, 150 points. You get that same 25% boost, and you are now in the green. You've made, or in the black, I guess it's the saying, you've made 12.5 points. You are up from your starting position. Meanwhile, you might have also been working on other challenges solving those things as the author. Now, notice that this is player 1 again. He's captured flag 2, and that is only worth 50 points. Now, you still get that same 25% bump. In this instance, it's 12.5 points, so that puts you up 25 there. Same game. Player 4, 4th person comes along. There's only the practical limit of how many teams there are to get your points there. right now you're at 62.5 points up from your initial contribution. So pretty straightforward, I think, as far as like how that plays out. But I think we need to definitely talk about the criticisms that I've encountered and that I thought of initially, that I've got some excellent feedback from folks over the last couple of years. We've been trying to shop it around. So the first one is, what happens if somebody just creates a challenge that's, a total brick and there's not a solution to it? All right, that's a criticism. The next one, what about challenges that are just, flag 1, 2, 3, or password is password, things of that nature. I call that the race to the bottom, and that's where people are going to just flood it with kind of BS challenges that are just super easy. We'll see some mitigations for that as well. Legitimate but otherwise over or undervalued challenges. That one's hard, but you could call it an honest mistake. You can see the other ones, like the impossible to solve challenge. That's something that you would do to try to disrupt and ruin the game. Trivial challenges is you just trying to get a leg up, But this third one here is kind of an honest mistake. You didn't know that it was going to be as hard as it was. It's still solvable, but you didn't know it was going to be difficult for everybody. And then the last one is like bad faith administrators. We have, I guess a more practical solution for that. I would like to shout out Jeff at BIC for helping come up with ideas as I was pitching BYOCTF to them for their CTF framework. It was, he was like, oh man, I read through the docs, and challenge cloning was a really clever solution, or I'm sorry, attack on the framework that I thought he put forth. The things that we would need to think about in order to mitigate that, turns out they were already in place, but I was kind of stumped in the conversation. So we'll talk about that one here in just a second. So we have the controls in place for bad faith administrators. What I can do is offer my promise as the event organizer that I'm not going to try to win my own event. It's going to look pretty lame if I do. So there you go. That's the practical solution to bad faith administrators. We can tune, it's just a database at the end of the day. We can go in and change the values if we notice that everyone's like, ooh, that challenge is way too hard. We can just change the value and tune it to make it a more appropriate, or bring the value of points in line with what everyone else's is. The next one is that race to the bottom concept, where everyone's just flooding the entire game with just easy and trivial challenges. We can disable specific challenges, or we can just disable the entire thing. It's a regular CTF framework as well, so you can still run on your core challenges and just disable and hide all of the other challenges that were submitted through the BIOC mechanism. And then obviously we can disable a user and challenges associated with that user. So that is, that's kind of just hitting them with a ban hammer or something. I guess I have this here because it should be obvious, but you cannot submit a challenge from your own team. Like I would hope that should be obvious to you. And I always like to say, like, please don't make us use these rules. Don't hack the scoreboards, what we always would say. BIC sort of follows the same rules. Don't mess with the infrastructure. So I thought that this framework was fun because there's a lot of game theory involved in it as well. Some of the game and game theory is really just like where it comes from is the idea that your decisions impact my decisions. So how you play the game impacts how I play the game. And this sets up like what I guess it's a form of the classic prisoner's dilemma, where one set of players has to decide to cooperate or defect. And by defect, we mean create unfair challenges or create some sort of disadvantage for the opposing side. So trying to create an advantage for themselves or cooperate. We incentivize cooperation via the reward system, and we dissuade defection via the commit fee. So again, you have to commit 50% of the sum of your flags in order for you to be able to post it. So that alone should help mitigate some people that are willing to just try to nuke the game. So let's see, asymmetric information. This is sort of, again, calling back to the idea that there's a legitimate challenge that's otherwise undervalued. They are able to go forth and tune that information based on their experience in other events. I have this set up as like time vampires versus impossible challenge. Time vampire is a real challenge, it's just sucking time, something that's time consuming otherwise. An impossible challenge is broken or intentionally broken. I have impossible because I guess the joke I was making was like impossible meats, like the Impossible Whopper or something. So where's the beef? That's the joke. Okay. Again, we can change those things. The way that I sort of built into the framework to help manage that was, in gaining a free market experience, was leveraging the rating system within the framework. All of that will lead to what they call Nash equilibrium. And so that is where creating fun and fair challenges is the best strategy. That's what that Nash equilibrium is within our game. So the benefits of this particular framework, even if you don't use it in your event, or if you don't want to have people contribute challenges to your event, is how you store your challenges. I thought that was one of the hardest things, was to collect information from other developers about how the layout of their flag and their challenge should be stored. It allows you to have sort of just some structured format, and then you're able to obviously manage that through Git or whatever. So the other benefit is that when you do run it in your event, that will allow people to make little contributions at their own pace, and they can be really easy if they don't want to try to come hard with a bunch of like reverse engineering challenges. They can start with a very simple cryptography challenge. So you can make very small contributions, and I'm sure there's some other benefits in there that I'm rushing through right now. So the events that have used BYOCTF framework successfully, Shell on the Border, that's our event. That's me, right? We did a really cool event over New Year's Eve of 2023. I guess December 2023, going into 2024. That was Shell on the Border. We didn't have as many folks there as we would have liked, but it turns out we had just the right folks. So I'm super proud of that event. It was really awesome. If you weren't there, you missed out. SparkCon, that was a really cool CTF hosted by the Walmart Red Team at Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. And then maybe, who knows, BIC Village on DEF CON 33, hit me up. So here's some pictures from Shell on the Border. It was in an old, what used to be a skate park a long time ago. And it's been converted into an arcade. We had, all the cool hacker event stuff, badges and, scoreboards and CTFs and lock picking with untold amounts of cash in there. You can go and look at more photos at that event, or that QR code. It's the same thing. I do want to brag on Shell on the Border for 1 second, though. This was fun, and again, shout out to Omai for putting me on to this, the BIC Village presentation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for coming and playing in our CTF and thinking it was cool. You also performed, and that was fantastic. One of our guys was later, and he's like, "Oh man, I love this song," and it turns out he was talking to Omai, but he didn't realize it until like 30 minutes later. Fantastic. Big ups there. Thank you. So SparkCon, again, hosted at on April 20th, hosted at Walmart headquarters at their SparkCon event. This was like the Red Team hosted a CTF for not only their internal folks, but for just folks coming to the event in general. A lot of fun. There were about 140 folks there. So as far as people that registered, their team sizes were set differently. Again, most of the settings in this are tunable because they're settings. And there are, they had a lot of participation overall. You could kind of just drop in and check it out throughout the entire event, which I thought was really fun. So I've told you about all this cool stuff within BYOCTF. I've asked you to use it, but how do you do so? So again, I mentioned that it manifests as a Discord bot. These are the commands. This is all on the GitHub page. You can see there. But there are a couple of core commands you'll see. And so first of all, you had to be associated with our event at Shell on the Border. You had to have it set up in such a way that you were a member of the Arkansas Hackers Discord. You can go to https crime.life. That's crime with a K, the one true spelling. And then you had to register. You'd register a team, and the way that worked is the first person to register a team name with a certain password would claim ownership of that team name, and then you would give that password to anyone else who wanted to join your team specifically. That's your registration command. Once you're registered, this is how you could view them. So it's, bang all, and then pick a challenge. I picked challenge 25 here, for instance. And these are all happening as messages or DMs to the Discord bot within that channel. So I say I want to view either bang V or bang view, and then the challenge ID, challenge number, and that'll give you the description. That's roughly what it looks like. The description is telling you everything you need to solve the flag. This is how you would submit the flag, by sending just, again, #sub as in submit a flag, and then just, the flag content. You can see here that we're calling out that you cannot submit a flag from your own challenge. That was one of those flags that I created, so I cannot get points for my own stuff or anyone on my team's stuff. So you can see here is a successful completion as well for that particular challenge. That was challenge 25. If I do, bang, who am I? You can see there's my information. You have an API key that you can use to sort of get access to the web interface, which is the other thing that we haven't shown yet, and we will show you, but it gives you links and all that kind of good stuff. There's public and private keys and stuff that you could do with PKI that was built out and fun to have, but not essential to this framework in any way. If you want to see your score, the scoreboard in Discord format, this is how you would do it. So if you thought text-based UIs were whack, you can view a web interface. In fact, during the event, most people at Shell on the Border, that is, and at other events, SmartCon, most people wanted to use the web interface just because it was easier to ingest the information for whatever reason, which was a little bit disappointing because I spent a lot of time sort of thinking about the other one. But at any rate, I taught him a lesson, didn't spend any time thinking about this one. This is the scoreboard that we had projected on the wall. Really, the point there is just for you to be able to see who's in first place, who's the individual top scoring players, and then who's like the individual teams. This is, again, I put negative thought into the prettification of this. But here we are. That's it. That's what she looks like. That's the web interface, guys. Right here in the middle, you can see that's what I call the magic flag hole. You put flags in there and ideally get points out when you submit the flag. There was also that tipping mechanism that I mentioned earlier. You can send tips from this, the player HUD. You pick a player, you type their name or something in there. There's a drop down as well. And then you can say something about them and give them a certain number of points. There was an interesting abuse of that mechanism, which involved people sort of boosting one player at the end of the game into first place by everyone tipping them their all the points that they had because they weren't going to win. So there you go. That was fun. I didn't think about that, and there we are. So we did create a mitigation where there's now a fee. You have to spend additional funds to send a tip to somebody. At any rate, that's the landing page on the HUD. But you can see here, even an older screenshot for some reason, where we're listing the available challenges. You can see there's like a solved status. You can click, you can see the percentages, different tags that are associated with that challenge. So whether, this is just a generic like weird puzzle thing that we built, or it's a scripting challenge, or this is something that is a PowerShell oriented challenge, or cryptography or encryption or something. Those are all things that you can control F4 and find within the list of challenges. So when you go to a specific challenge, this is the information that'll land on it. You'll see all of the hints that you can purchase for your particular challenge. You can see the details, the description, how many flags it has, what are the sum of the value of flags. If you wanted it to be structured in such a way that you kind of feed them information, you have to feed them the information through the description. The framework does not host any files. When you submit a challenge, you're not giving it, oh, here's a 2 gigabyte PCAP. You have to store that on your own. That's your own thing. Welcome to the life of a challenge developer. How do you get your materials to the players? If you have a flag format that deviates from like our core convention, was just capital F, capital L, capital A, capital G, curly bracket, summit, witty flag, closing curly bracket, that if it deviates from that, I would appreciate that you put your flag format in there. So there's that. It's not case insensitive. There's no way to build regular expression. That's not that there's no way. I chose not to build regular expressions or make it case insensitive. That's just the game. So these are all the transactions. I said that this is sort of a transaction-oriented framework. These are all the transactions associated with your specific team. That involves flag solves, hint purchases, rewards, anything that happened that influenced the score on your team will show up as part of your team transactions. Just a way for you to be able to account for that. That same thing, except for public transactions, happens right here. So this is something you could maybe have on a different wall somewhere. These are all public transactions. So anytime someone sends a tip, there's that fun, message that can show up. If you go and look at them, you'll see that as you receive a tip, you will see the message. They're not necessarily public. So that's fun, I guess. There was an interesting XSS bug that I fixed in that too. So hacker's gonna hack, man. Thank you guys. This is what it looks like on the back end. It's all written in Python, I said. Again, that Discord bot. But you can, dump a list of users within the framework, their score as well. You can look at the BYOCTF stats. So how many solves were for a particular challenge that was a BYOC challenge? What is the total payout for some of those challenges? There's a bunch of different commands within that control CTF, such as like pausing the entire game. If you wanted to shut it down for the night or something, you can do that such that they can't view new challenges or submit new flags. Things of that nature. That's what the transactions look like on the back end. You can see that there is unredacted flag content here. So don't run this on like the projector overhead or something like that. So that stuff is there for, I guess, debugging purposes originally, I think. So there's that. That's what it looks like on the back end. Let's build and pour some challenges. You can really do this. If you go to scoreboard.byoctf.com/creator, it'll take you to a cool tool that helps bypass a lot of the hand jamming of stuff that you would have to do. You're not having to write this TOML file by hand. But this is what the structure for a simple single flag challenge could look like. You have to have your author. Back when it was strictly Discord based, that was your Discord user ID, not the old discriminator with the pound number. This is the current username for Discord. The challenge, that's what people see. The challenge description is the description of the challenge. It's pretty obvious. Tags, these are the categories, if you will. We don't have categories. They're all free form. We try to normalize them so you're not going to have a capital web and then lowercase web set of categories. We strip white space, lowercase, and it's kind of an upsert. If the if the tag already exists, it gets added to it. Right? It's not creating a new thing. If it doesn't exist, it gets added. This UUID is a unique identifier. Ideally, it's not going to have any duplicates, so there's that. And this is an array of flags. So you have, first off, the flag title. That's what you're going to use internally to know that, oh, that's the name of the challenge of the flag that I solved, or a specific level within my challenge. So this is flag 1, collect information from user's desktop. Flag value is how many points that flag is worth. Flag is the actual thing that the user is supposed to paste or type into the magic flag hole to get their money. Hints. So this is any information you want to feed a user about your challenge, but charge them for it. Here you go. You do actually get a cut of the hints as well. I believe it's that same 25%. And they are doled out lowest cost first. So you need to order them. So the very first hint you would give to somebody should be the cheapest hint you would charge them. And there's that. So that's a single flag challenge. That right there, you copy and paste it as a TOML file, commit it to the framework, and boom, there it is. So that's your single flag challenge. Here's a single flag challenge with a dependency. Here's all that same information, except there is a field that says depends on, and it has a UUID of some existing challenge. It has to exist within the framework before it will be accepted as a valid challenge. So if you have 2 challenges that you've committed, you have to commit the first challenge first, pay its fee, and then you have to commit the second challenge with its UUID set as a dependency and pay that fee as well. So you can't commit them in reverse order. Same concept, single flags. If you wanted to do multiple flags, here's how you do that. Flags, 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 pretty straightforward. Same thing is true for hints. This is how you set up an externally validated challenge. You have to give it the external validation URL, and that's just some HTTP endpoint validate, and then you will receive a request and respond to it. So if you're running the HTTP external, or I'm sorry, the external validator that we wrote, that should just work for you, and it'll look through a JSON or a dictionary of various flags that you have set up on your infrastructure, and it'll say, is this the flag that you've submitted? Yes. Or is this the SHA-256 of the flag that you've submitted? And you'll say yes or no. And if we get the answer back from you, then we're in the money on that, I guess. So you've earned something. It feels like an attack vector. I don't think that it is. You can look at it, but don't waste a whole lot of time on it. So those tools that I mentioned, you building, BYOCTF, builder, this is going to walk you through, so you don't have to hand jam any of that TOML. You just fill out all these fields, and then at the bottom of the page, you can copy. There's a button that copies it or downloads the TOML file for you. You can paste it into here, and I think I even added at the tail end of the other events, the ability to commit it directly from this. And now that you have Google authentication built in, you don't have to use your Discord ID. I guess I should update that. But here we are. You just, whatever your name is, your name within the framework, use that name for your author. You can't commit a challenge that's not yours. So that's also a thing where you would. That was an attack that I thought of, like you submit a challenge on behalf of somebody else, which I thought was a funny thing to do. And thus, they would get charged for it. Anyway, there we are. So I think this video that I have here is a short video that's like, I think, 1.5 minutes, which shows the entire process. The link to that will be in the slides. golly gee, that sure was a cool video. Awesome. Links and resources. This is where you can go and find those things. I think the link in the video is actually wrong. I've dropped the validator subdomain, and it's all just living on the scoreboard now. They were separate apps at one point, but now it's all just one app. Yeah, so those things can get you started in writing CTF challenges. Next, what makes a good CTF challenge? If we didn't discuss any of that stuff, which I don't think I did, I have a whole thing written up about my personal experiences writing challenges for others. I think that this is an opportunity for you to think about someone else's learning experience. What is it that you're expecting them to know versus like know before they come to the event or as they start your challenge, versus what are you wanting them to discover in solving your challenge, right? All of that stuff, sort of thinking about that helps you understand how to value your challenge. That's to say, is this a really hard challenge, thus high points, or is it an easy challenge, thus low points? And then you can tune the value of your flags relative to the other challenges that you've experienced in other CTFs or in this CTF specifically. One thing that I will say is that the points don't matter as much, because if it's really easy, then it's really easy for everybody. That is to say, well, it's not that it's easy for everybody. It's that if it's low points or if it's overly valued, that is to say, like I'm going to say 1,000 points, and it's really easy, then everyone has that opportunity to capture it. If it's objectively easy, again, flag 1, 2, 3 or something, then everyone has that same opportunity. So it's like, you weren't paying attention, you missed this really, gimme challenge. I don't know what to tell you, it happens sometimes. So here's some examples, like binary to ASCII conversion. If you're brand new to computers and you're a 7th grader and you're learning about, oh man, keyboards, they have, numeric values, key scan codes associated with them. Oh, wow, how do I translate from one to the other? Oh, well, okay. Excellent. That might be a 100-point challenge for them. However, if you are dealing with a room full of hackers, that might not be a very good challenge as far as like valuing like their time and efforts and whatnot. But you value that lowly. Base 64, not everybody knows what that is. That's just something you get to know with experience. But notice that it's not 25 points, it's 50 points. Like some of the classic binary exploitation, that might be a medium level, because it's not only do you have to understand about the fact that there are compiled executables, but how to abuse those executables. So that there's a certain amount of information you had to come to the challenge with, and in that you might have to learn something new. So if there's a technique like the string format vulnerabilities where you're leaking information, or you're leaking information off of the stack or off the heap, or some other mechanism that obviously if there's something you have to learn about the challenge during the challenge, that might make it more difficult, so more points. So on and so forth. That's one way to look at it. So I like to make sure to express the distinction between complexity and complicated. There is a difference between the two. And so if you're executing this challenge and you're building it out, if you're having them escalate their the things that they're going to have to do as far as sophistication as a threat actor, they're like, I don't know, I guess that's a cool way to think about it. Have them, shoot, I've messed up at this point. Restart, edit. Oh, edit. I can edit this. Nice. Go back. All right, edit at 40. What slide is this? 429. Okay, cool. So I want to make a distinction between complexity and difficulty. I think it's important to think about if a challenge is really easy to do, very likely to happen, and has a high impact, it might not be a high point challenge because that's, again, script kiddie stuff, right? You can go and download an executable, point it at something, and hack it. There's not much learning going on there. So how could you change the equation is the question I'm asking there. So any number of ways to do that. You can make it really hard to do, but likely to happen. And that would change the other side of the equation, where it's no longer just low points, it might be medium points. If it's unlikely to happen and really easy to do, though, that again, you might have to work really hard to discover the vulnerability, but it's an easy vulnerability to trigger. That might change whether or not it's low points. Some of the examples that I'm walking through here in this, fabricated challenge is like the landmarks that I'm sort of laying out is that we use MS-1710 for initial access. And that gives us a system shell on that remote machine. So we can look at the administrator's desktop, flag.txt. But we have a higher order objective in mind, and that is to compromise, information within the organization. So in this, we're supposed to target PII, and there is a spreadsheet on so-and-so's desktop, and they are the HR person within this organization. And then the next objective, once we found that spreadsheet and gotten the flag out of one of the cells in it or something, we are supposed to find and disenroll the base commander from their TRICARE, registration. So they're going to lose their insurance, right? Problematic. That is an interesting thing that doesn't have anything to do with the technical exploit. It has to do with understanding something within the mechanics of the game that is hosted at tricare.info. So now there's something you had to learn about this challenge from this challenge and exploit it. So all of those are escalating in complexity and sophistication beyond just like the technical vector of, oh, did you download and run the right command? So I think that's a cool way to architect challenges. Again, these points are made up, so just use your best judgment. So this is the point where I ask for questions, comments, and concerns. Hearing none, we'll move on. This is our final call to action. Please contribute. Please consider, leveraging the framework to the best of your ability, whether that be, just helping with documentation within the BYOCTF GitHub. That would be very useful. I'm not good at that stuff. Or your experiences with it. Any ideas you have for various game types or something like that, please just participate. That would be cool. And that is it. I would like to say there's a funny story here. We had a couple of skits at Shell on the Border 2023, and one of them was involving Hal from Hackers. So yeah, that was fun. And then this was also like how to register players and users and such within the framework. So I kind of walked you through that stuff. So we won't play them though.
Hey, Shell on the Border.
Yeah. Oh, boom. All right, there we go. Boom. Thank you, and hack the planet.